Also new this year is our own Louisiana state interpretation of the numbering rule exceptions in Rule 725B. In this segment, we'll talk about the numbering requirements, the exception to those requirements, and why we are implementing a new interpretation for this season. So let's talk about the numbering rule and how the current numbering exceptions came to be. The basic rule requires Team A to have at least 5 players numbered 50 to 79 on the line of scrimmage. Over time, there developed a general numbering exception to that rule. Under that exception, when Team A or K went into scrimmage kick formation, they could replace any numbered 50-79 player with any other player wearing an eligible number. Now, those players in the exceptions had some restrictions. They were ineligible receivers throughout the down, and they had to line up in certain places on the line of scrimmage. The purpose of having the numbering exception was generally to allow Team A or K to have faster players available for kick return coverage. A little later, a current numbering limitation came into play, and that is currently listed at Rule 725B, Exception 1. Under that exception, the numbering exceptions are limited on first, second, and third down. For those downs, only the snapper can be an exception to the numbering rule, and he had to line up between the ends. This became a response to the deceptive and unintended uses of the numbering exceptions, commonly used in what was called the A11 offense. As part of the limitation, the general numbering exception that had applied for so long became limited to fourth down and kick try plays. Although the numbering exception limitation rule prevented some abuses, it also created unintended consequences. Some teams use only one scrimmage kick formation throughout the game, and that formation has more than one exception to the numbering rule. For most of the game, this does not present a problem because teams usually kick and use these formations on fourth down and tries. In those situations, they easily comply with Exception 2. But there are some game situations where these teams may need to attempt a scrimmage kick on first, second, or third down. The most common situation is near the end of a game when a team runs its field goal unit onto the field to try a game-winning field goal. Similarly, the team who goes on offense second during overtime may want to kick a winning field goal on first down and end the game right there. The current numbering exception rule, Exception 1, prevents them from using their normal kicking formation in these situations, even though it is obvious a kick will be made, and even though the number of the down is not relevant. The numbering exception rule was not intended to prevent these teams from attempting scrimmage kicks in these obvious kicking situations. So, to avoid unintended penalties and allow normal and expected kicking attempts, while still prohibiting deceptive and unsporting abuses of the numbering exception rule, we will use the following interpretation this season. With 40 seconds or less remaining in any quarter or during any play in overtime, Team A or K may snap the ball while in a scrimmage kick formation in accordance with Rule 725B Exception 2, which allows for multiple numbering exceptions, on first, second, or third down, as long as it legally kicks the ball during the down and does not throw a forward pass during the down. If the ball is not kicked, or if a forward pass is thrown, it is a foul for illegal numbering and the penalty is enforced from the previous spot. This should allow for last-minute game impact kicks, avoid unintended penalties, and prohibit the deceptive use of the numbering exception rule. Remember, this exception can only occur in the last 40 seconds of a quarter or during a play in overtime. For the great majority of the game, teams will have to follow the normal rules that have been in place for several years. In the last 40 seconds, however, or in overtime, they will have the ability to punt or attempt field goals using numerous numbering exceptions under this interpretation. So, to remember what is allowed, break things into 2 categories: more than 40 seconds left in a quarter, and 40 seconds or less in a quarter or a play in overtime. With more than 40 seconds left in any quarter, the normal rules apply. On first, second, or third down, only the snapper can be an exception to the numbering rule, and on fourth down, numerous exceptions are allowed with no other restrictions. With 40 seconds or less left in a quarter, or in any play in overtime, numerous exceptions are allowed on first, second, or third down, as long as the offense kicks the ball and does not throw a forward pass. On fourth down in this time frame, numerous exceptions are allowed without any other restrictions. So take a look at the formation depicted here. This formation has multiple exceptions to the numbering rule. Numbers 34, 17, 21, and 30 are all lined up as exceptions. With more than 40 seconds left in any quarter, this formation is only legal on fourth down and kick tries. With 40 seconds or less in a quarter, or on any play in overtime, this formation is legal on first, second, and third down as long as Team K kicks the ball and does not throw a forward pass. With 40 seconds or less in a quarter, or on any play in overtime, on fourth down, this formation is legal without the other requirements. For more information about this interpretation, and to see some case play examples explaining the interpretation, please take a look at pages 16 to 18 of the officiating manual.